Good afternoon. This is April Mitchell for INFM685 Week 5 Video Blog 5. We are to identify the different stages that would be a part of a health information system development using prototype methodology and evaluate it against other SDLC methodologies or software development life cycles. According to Tilley and Rosenblatt, the prototyping is a method involving a repetitive sequence of analysis, design, modeling, and testing by which a prototype or a portion of a system is developed to allow the validation of a system design by the end user. I found an article by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Office of Information Services that wrote about a document called Selecting a Development Approach, which discussed the strengths and weaknesses of system development methodologies such as waterfall, prototyping, incremental, spiral, or agile, and RAD methods. I will highlight the waterfall, prototyping, and the spiral methods. Waterfall, the framework type is a linear type. It has 5 stages, which is investigate, requirements, definition, system design, coding and testing, and implementation. Its appropriate uses are for inexperienced teams because it has a lot of different checkpoints. You have to get different approvals at certain intervals before you can move forward. So it's best suited for teams that don't have much project management experience or exposure. It's also appropriate for stable requirements, meaning that I guess you know exactly what the requirements are. They won't be changing. It's also for large, expensive, and complicated projects. The least appropriate use for this particular type of methodology is that you have ever-changing requirements. A real-time system, meaning that you put in an order, a doctor puts in an order for lab work, and he expects it to be sent to the lab that particular moment, not where it has to be badged at a certain time of the evening and sent over to lab work. He needs that information sent right away so that he can get his results back right away. A waterfall methodology would not be appropriate for this type of software design project. Also, prototyping is iterative, meaning that it's done in stages. So the 6 stages of it is determine, objective, develop, refine, demonstrate, test, and implement. This appropriate uses for frequently changing functional requirements. And experienced teams should be able to use this without any issues. And it's for large projects with many end users. The least appropriate use for it is project objectives aren't very clear. The future scalability is critical. So it's not for a system or a system design where they are expecting to add to the particular modules or add to the software. It's for just a one-time functional aspect of the software that the user wants for their end users. The client wants for their end users. It's not best suited for web-enabled e-business systems. Let's see. Spiral, which is like the agile method, is a combo of both linear and iterative. It has 4 stages. Determine objectives, identify and resolve risk, development and test, and plan the next iteration. It's not for, the most appropriate use is for risk avoidance, which is high priority, because it just basically takes to look at what you're needing to develop at that particular point in time. It's not taking a look at the whole project. It's just doing it in increments a little bit at a time. Least appropriate use is for a high degree of accuracy. It's not essential, or the functionality has priority over the implementation. Because with Agile, it's all about getting the product to the customer, to the client. So implementation is high priority over functionality. you work out that over the different iterations as you go along. How this basically looks as in an illustration, waterfall is basically as it would appear, the name would appear. It's just one step falls into the other step. Some steps overlap each other. Some steps go backwards, but it's basically just going in a downward motion. Prototyping is when the first stages of determining the objective, it flows into the development, which flows into refining, and which goes back into demonstrating, and then that goes into testing and implementing. It's just basically, it goes in a linear, and then it kind of goes in a spiral motion, and then it goes back to linear again. And the spiral motion, the spiral methodology rather, you have the first stages where you're developing the objectives, and that begins the whole progress, as you can see, as it goes around to identifying and resolving the risk. And then you'll see as it goes down to development and test, the spiral gets larger. It starts off in the middle with the concept operations, the requirements plans, the risk analysis, then the first prototype is made. Then more requirements are built onto it, and verification and validation and a test plan. And then it goes to a risk analysis again, and then another prototype. And then it just continues on again until it's at this final stages, because you've gone through prototype 1 and 2 to refine it. And then you risk analysis again, and you do another operational prototype, detailed design, you go into the coding, integration, the testing, and implementation. And then finally, that particular portion of the project is released. My conclusion on this whole take as far as methodologies is that they all can basically be used on any particular project. It just depends upon of course, the objective of the project, what type of outcome you're expecting, and the budget. So that's my take on this week's comparison, a prototype comparison with the other SDLC methodologies. I appreciate your feedback and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Bye.